Okay, in this video we're going to be looking at the different layout options we have relating to lists, or the table view that you see right here instead of the forms like we did in the previous videos. As you can see, WorkflowFirst automatically creates a kind of layout for you for the lists, and it basically just shows all of the fields, I think up to the first 7 in the list. As it finds them in the form. Now that's fine, maybe for for certain lists, but you probably want to customize it and change which fields are showing up in here, and maybe the number of columns. And that's the type of thing that we're going to be looking at in this particular video. Now, right now we're looking at the tickets list, which has quite a few fields. And quite a few long fields that really have a lot of text in them. We're going to try and sort out this list to make it to look a little better. One of the things that we want to change immediately is this details that we have right here. It's probably a bit too much information to have in the list as a column. As you can see, it's getting cropped after I think 50 characters. I think it actually gets cropped. And it just puts ... at the end, so you don't even get to see all of the information, and it could be quite useful. So we're going to use a feature called the preview field in order to show that underneath the row instead of in the actual instead of being in a column in the list. So let's go back to our tickets application tab, and we're going to look at the details field right here. Now there's a flag that we can add called inline preview. So we're going to add that and see what that looks like. Publish this and go back here. Okay, now you'll notice that underneath each row in grey we actually have the details value showing up. And it shows up, I think, there's many more characters. I think up to like 2,000 characters will show up in there, and it will be slightly indented. So this is actually quite a useful way to get more information actually into your list without cluttering up the columns too much. Now the problem we have here is that we have our details preview underneath each row, but we still have our details column right here, and we want to really get rid of that. So now we're going to look at a feature called the display level. The display level defines whether a field shows up in the list or only in the form. So we're going to go to the details field, we're going to edit this, go to display settings, and change the display level from summary to detail. Now what that does is it only makes the field visible when you're looking at the detail view, which is actually the form view. So detail is a form and summary is a list. So we change that to be detail. We're going to update that and republish. Patch it. Go back here and refresh. And now you see that the detail column has actually disappeared. Instead we just have our detail showing underneath it instead. But if I click on it, we still see the details field in the form right here. Okay, that is something that you can actually go through all of the fields in order to define which fields are going to show up in this list view and which will not. There's actually an easier way of setting that quickly, and that is you can actually multi-select the fields that you want to take out of the main list. So let's say I click on details and URL and resolution. I'll leave assign to, but I'll take out priority. Now I've selected those, I can click on bulk set, which shows up at the bottom here once you have a multiple selection active. Click on bulk set, I can now change the display level for multiple fields at once. So I click change display level, and then I change it here to be detail, because I want all of those to only show up in the form and not in the list. So I click OK, and it says it's changed for items. Okay, let's republish this, and we'll see how the list looks. Okay, so now we've pretty much changed the list quite dramatically. Now we just see the originator, the state, the title, who it's assigned to, and the due by. So we've controlled which fields are showing up in the list now, but when we click on the actual form, we still see the same fields in here. Okay, now that covers the display levels. Now we can actually add more columns if we want to. Let's say that we want to actually show more columns than the normal 7. To do that, we'd actually have to go to the application tab or your nested list, go to advanced, and add an advanced record. Now here we have override max columns. Let's say we set this to be 10. We don't even have 10 fields in here, so we're going to make all of them visible. So we're going to select them all and say change display level and make all of them visible in the summary view and take off the selection. So let's publish that. And you can see now it's showing 10 columns, which is way too much information. But you know, this could be useful if you're showing a lot of prices or numbers, number fields, and you want to cram them all in to the list. You can certainly do that if you want to. Some people prefer to have a lot less information. So we're going to go back and just select the ones that we don't want to include in here again. So we can just keep it at a minimum. You know, another option which you may have just seen in the advanced is actually to change the font size. If you increase the number of columns, it's actually quite useful to change the font size because you can actually cram a lot more information in if you have a smaller font. So you can actually reduce the font size. If I go back to tickets, advanced, and edit this, the list font size that you see here is actually in EMs. So if you put 1, it's going to be the default. If you put 1.1, it's going to be 110% of the size. So you could put 0.8 to make it 80% of the current size. And then you may be able to increase the maximum columns to be maybe even 12 to get a lot more information in there. Okay. So another useful feature is to be able to change the titles, the column headers in here. Sometimes they're a little bit long for the field that it's actually going to be containing. We don't have any long fields here right now, but I just want to demonstrate that we can change the actual column title. Now this is going to be changing the title of the column in the list, but not the title. Sorry, not the title of the field as it displays in the form itself. So to do that, we go to a particular field. Let's say assigned to. Okay, we click on this. Now normally the title right here will be used for the field title, but if you go to advanced, we can edit that in here, and we can change the title to specify a short title. The short title is what's going to appear at the top of the list, and here we can just call it who, for example. So let's publish that. And now we'll see that the field, the column title says who, but if you click it, it'll still say assigned to. So that allows you to have some shorter field names, again, so that you can cram more information into the list if you want to do that. Can be useful, depending on the type of data that you're looking at. Now, you'll also notice that by default we show 20 records in a list before we go on to the next page. It will have a next page link at the bottom. Now 20 is the default that it uses, but you can override that and specify your own number if you want to. Again, you go to the application tab and in advanced, edit that, and right here we have an option down here called override page size. This is where you specify the number of items per page. So let's say we want to make that even shorter and make that 5. We could do that right here. And of course you would normally be specifying something much larger than that, maybe 30 or 40, so that you can increase the number of items per page. It's not generally a good idea to reduce it. Now you see here we have 5 items before we go to the next page. So it's not generally a good idea to have too many in the list, because they will have to scroll down and down before they can click the next page. It's useful to have them kind of on the page so they can click next page without having to do any scrolling. But sometimes that's not the case, and sometimes when you're looking at like accounting information or you know, something where you don't want to be splitting up lots of pages, in that case you may want to increase it right there. It can be useful. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at are row renditions. Row renditions actually is similar to what we touched on in the previous video, where you can change the coloring of a particular row based on values in that row. So we'll look at that right now. To do that, we're going to go to Tickets, we're going to click the ... and we're going to go to Record Renditions right here. We'll click plus on that. And let's see what we can actually do here. So let's make it so that if the state of the workflow is escalate, then we make it red, perhaps. Okay, so the state field is called ticket state. Red escalate. We can give it a title. The title doesn't show up anywhere, but sometimes it's useful just so that you know what the rendition is trying to actually achieve. Ticket state equals escalate. This is a DBF script expression, so if you use DBF script you'll be familiar with this, but it's pretty straightforward. It's basically pound input slash then the field equals and then the value. Alright, so in this case we're going to set the background color to be a kind of light red. So if the ticket state is equal to escalate, then we set the background color. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and sure enough, the ticket that does have the state as set to escalate is showing up as red in our list, and that's the only one that we have in here. So you can actually combine multiple renditions if you want to. You can add another one with a different rendition, and maybe that will change the foreground color only. Or maybe it will make it bold, for example. You can combine these so that it actually combines a background and a foreground and bold or whatever in different ways based on different conditions. So it's very sophisticated in that sense. Okay, that covers row renditions, which are a very useful feature. And the last thing that we're going to be covering are filters. We already have a filter actually, because the workflow automatically adds a filter for us. You see it right here where it says show all, CSO or tech. I think these are actually the roles associated with the workflow. So you can see that if I change it to tech, it'll only show the workflow items that are relevant to a technician. And that's based on the workflow and how we set up the roles. So this is a filter that the workflow adds for us. But we can actually add our own filters on top of this if we want to. You see on products we don't have any filters. Maybe we want to have a filter in here so we can see all of the furniture types, for example. So we're going to do that right now. I'm just going to quickly add a few more products into this list. Okay, so I added a few more products. So let's go back and add a filter which will allow us to perhaps see the different types of products that we have. So we go back to our products application tab, and in here click ... and now we want to add something under filters, so we click on filters, click on plus on filters. We'll call this a prod type. We're not going to apply it by default. We're not going to need to add indexes. Adding indexes can be useful because what that will do is it actually automatically adds an index onto the fields that you're using in the filter. That's a database index, which actually speeds up querying for that data and doesn't have to actually go through as much data in order to find the particular record you're looking for. We don't need to do that right now though. So what we do is we click plus on the criteria down here, and this is where we actually specify what the different filter criteria are going to be. So we're going to be looking at type, and we're going to say equals furniture. It's going to be one of our options. Okay, so this actually the name for this should have actually been furniture, because this is going to be the name of our filter item. It's going to be furniture. So we click plus on that, and we're going to add another one. Let's see what other types we have. Computer and telephone. So we click on here, we can click computer. Again, we can specify criteria where the type is equal to computer. You can have multiple criteria if you want to limit more than just this, but we're going to keep it simple for now. And the last one is going to be telephone, because these are the different types of things that we want to actually filter by. And we specify type equals telephone. Now the apply by default actually allows you to apply a particular filter by default, so that when you first go to that tab, this is going to be the filter that's going to be applied, and then they can change it if they want to. We're not going to be doing that right now though. So let's publish this. And switch over here. Now you see we have a filter called products, which actually says show all by default, because that's, like I said, we don't have a default filter, so it's going to show everything. And then you can click on here and click telephone, and it will just show you the telephone entry. Computer, just show you the computer entry, or furniture, and it will show you both of the furniture entries. And then you can go back to show all. So that's quite a useful way to actually set up a filter on here. There's actually another thing that you can do to filter for different types of items. You can click on a heading at the top of a list to sort by that. So I can sort alphabetically here, in reverse alphabetical order here. If I click it again, it actually goes to a list of unique items. And then I can click on one of these, and it has the same effect of actually filtering by those particular items. I can click it again to get back to my original list. So that's another way of doing a filter. Okay, so like I said, the workflow does set up filters optionally by role or by stage, and then you can add more filters onto that if you need to for different types of situations and scenarios that you think they may want to actually filter by. Okay, that wraps it up for the customization for lists. Hopefully that's useful. Next we'll be going into more advanced customization options.